Hello, my name is Karolina Novotná and this is EU Perspectives. Today on the topic of the future of the EU automotive industry. And here in the studio with us to discuss this important topic is Mr. Ondřej Krutílek from the ECR political group in the European Parliament. Welcome.
Thank you for inviting me.
Also joining us is Mr. Jens Gieseke from the EPP political group. Welcome.
Thank you very much.
And also here with us to provide the industry's point of view is Sigrid de Vries from the European Automotive Manufacturers Association. Welcome.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
The automotive industry is one of the largest ones in the EU. It accounts for around 7% of the GDP, yet now it's facing a crisis. So, Ms. de Vries, let me start with you. What are the biggest challenges that the industry is facing right now?
The lack of competitiveness in Europe to manufacture in a profitable and affordable way, to secure jobs, to make this transition to electromobility and keep Europe mobile. So we need to have a more competitive framework in a global context, and that's the main challenge we're facing.
Yeah. Mr. Gieseke, so you are the main author of the EPP position paper on the issue. So what are the challenges from your perspective that are the most pressing ones?
So first of all, I would not say that I'm the author, but it is an EPP position. So it has been adopted by the whole group. That is important. We are the biggest group in the European Parliament. And so it's good to have a position as EPP in the Parliament. And we are quite clear that we have expectations from the Commission that they have now to deliver. And Sigrid de Vries is very right in saying that we have a lack of competitiveness. So we have to change rules. And this means that after the Fit for 55 and the Green Deal, we have to confess that we made some mistakes. These mistakes should be corrected. And the ban of the combustion engine has been a mistake from our point of view. So there we urgently need a decision to have a revision of the CO2 standards in order to correct this mistake. This is the first step. And another low-hanging fruit is, of course, in this year, in 2025, we have the question of penalties. And there we have a clear commitment that we do not want to have any penalties for the automotive industry in this year.
Yes, so you've jumped straight into the...
This is where we are.
Yeah, and that's great. Mr. Krutílek, so maybe also you can give us your opinion on what are the key challenges. So is it really the competitiveness or is it the rules that the EU has created?
Well, I think that these issues are interconnected. So yeah, there's a lack of competitiveness, but we of course are in the meantime within the transformation of the whole sector. And we need to have some quick fix for some issues which already has been mentioned by Jens. And of course we have to think to the future. How to keep automotive industry in Europe. What Jens has already said, I completely concur with that. So it means 2035 internal combustion engines ban that needs to be revised. Then of course there are the penalties for 2025, and then we can discuss later how to fix this. And there's a third issue. We think that we should make a review of 2035 target not next year or year after, which is there for heavy duties, but this year, 2025, because what we need for automotive industry is predictability of the whole legislative framework, and it is still not there.
Ms. de Vries, so we are talking about the 2035 combustion engine ban. The EPP position paper basically states that it should be technologically neutral. So basically the other options are e-fuels. Is that a direction where the automotive industry should go in? Because right now they are pretty expensive.
Yeah, let me first of all indeed stress that we need a reality check when it comes to implementing the green transformation. We need to make sure that the Green Deal is indeed delivering on CO2 reduction. We want a decarbonized society, but it also needs to deliver on our economy, having a sustainable economy, but also one where people can actually live, make a living, have a good jobs. And the auto industry is an industry with very well paid jobs. Many millions of people and livelihoods depend on the industry, and that we need to secure. And for that, we need a reality check. We need a transformation that is not penalty driven, but more market driven and incentive driven. And that's a huge task that we see for the European Commission, notably now, to deliver on, to bring proposals to the table. We've seen that in the European Parliament, notably from the EPP, but also the ECR. They're very helpful papers and very good thinking, thorough analysis, and also making the case for this reality check that we also believe is necessary. Now, then it comes to the how. We focus ourselves for the moment very much on the short-term needs, because we believe if you don't meet your targets near term, then it will simply be even more impossible to meet your targets long term. So our focus, immediate focus now on the passenger car side, is on the penalties, relief for compliance in 2025, because there is a market failure at the moment. Manufacturers are doubling down on electrification, which will be the dominant technology, not the only one, but the dominant one. Lots of investment there, but we need a market to pull, and that's currently not working. So we need relief for the penalties, and indeed we need also an earlier review of the whole legislation for both passenger cars and heavy duties, to really take stock of where are we with the enabling conditions, because it's not just simply a technology changeover. We need a whole systemic change. We need the infrastructure, electricity, but also renewable fuels. We need affordable electricity. We need more affordable vehicles. We need the whole supply chain to be set up, because that's currently still lagging behind as well. And we need the regulatory framework to change, to make it more fit for business, to allow business to thrive and not be stifled, especially also on the innovation side. So that all includes also e-fuels, but not only e-fuels. We're talking low carbon fuels, renewable fuels. They have a role to play. Again, when it comes to regulation, you could argue, where should it sit? What place should it have? And there's a lot of technical and regulatory nitty-gritty, but it's definitely obvious that we cannot just go for one solution. We need to remain technology open, technology neutral, and fuels also have a huge role to play.
Okay, so if I understand it correctly, yes, you want the 2035 revision ban, but it's not the key topic for you at this moment.
Well, we believe it's maybe not the right question to ask right now. We want this transformation to work in a realistic way. If one of the outcomes were that you need to really revise, which is indeed de facto a ban on combustion engine vehicles, then that should be the outcome of that process. But it's important to keep the foot on the accelerator of this transformation, because we need to transform, and electromobility is an important element there. So if we now lose ourselves in a more dogmatic or black and white discussion on whether there should be a ban or not, we believe that it doesn't help us in the actual transition now. So indeed, focus on the short term, but also indeed remain and be in actual fact technology open. That's been a standing position of the automotive industry in Europe, and we stay firm and behind that.
Mr. Gieseke, how do you think that the penalties should change? Because you don't propose to completely cancel the goals, but just to change the way that the penalties are counted. So in what way should that happen?
Well, I think this is up to the Commission to make a proposal on how it really works. We made some proposals how it could work, on flexibility on the calculation method, for example, on a 3-year average. But the clear commitment should be that in 2025 there will be no penalties. Because the problem in the industry is, of course, it's difficult to discuss the 2035 target if you are not sure that you will survive 2025. So it's not a low-hanging fruit. For me, politically, it's necessary to have a clear commitment that there will be no penalties this year. And in a way, this is something where the solution cannot be to give flexibility to our OEMs. Well, you can have a kind of calculation. You can buy some credits from your competitor like Tesla or BYD. This is a solution of European legislation. This does not fly, not at all. We have the problem that the competitors are heavily subsidized if it comes to China, and now our solution is, okay, you avoid the penalty in giving your competitor no additional money. This is something I politically can never defend. So my clear expectation is the Commission should not have too long strategic dialogues, but come with a proposal and a clear commitment that there will be no penalties in this year. This is my expectation, and they are crystal clear.
Okay, Mr. Krutilek, that being said, the issue of China is not that the issue of China is that there is way bigger demand for electric vehicles, and we need to be more competitive in the production of electric vehicles. So isn't it actually a step back to say, okay, well, our goals can wait?
Well, I don't think so. I think that what's at stake is the future of automotive industry in Europe. And what we have experienced so far is that people were not ready to buy electric vehicles. They don't want to be forced to buy something. I'm coming from Czechia, and it means that we are quite sensitive when someone tells us what should be done. So we would like to have our own brain and our own decisions, and that's the same in automotive industry. So I think that tech neutrality, which was mentioned here by Sigrid before, it's the key, and we need to make sure this year that the penalties will not be paid. I think that 3-year average is not enough, which was mentioned here by Jens. I think 5-year average should be better, because this could be a safer port for everyone. But we are of course here to debate the final solution once it is tabled on EP's plenary agenda. We as conservatives are here ready from or since October last year. We have a draft resolution, and we are ready to negotiate with our other partners, our groups in the European Parliament.
So just to mention some numbers, in 2024 the amount of EVs sold in Europe dropped by 6%, but globally it increased by 14%, and that number is driven primarily by China, whose EV sales rise by 20%. So Mr. Vries, why do you think it is that Europeans don't seem to really want to buy electric vehicles?
There's a number of reasons for that. We've seen that early movers and early adopters, people that can afford it or that really want it because they believe in the green transformation, they can charge at home, for example, or at work, so they have charging infrastructure available. They have made the move. But where we now need to go as a society is to not just the early majority, but the large majority. We need the masses to go for a plug. And this is very difficult if you don't have the means, or if you don't have the infrastructure, or you don't feel confident enough to use the technology because you have worries about how far you can drive with a vehicle. And there are great differences indeed, also it was mentioned before, in Europe. Some countries will be ahead, others will be behind a little bit, depending on GDP in the country or the state of the infrastructure there. So we need a huge transformation with a mindset and all of that in a very short amount of time. And this is turning out to be more difficult than many thought. And of course, we see also changes in the global circumstances with an economy that is not developing as well, with geopolitical and economic tensions, with costs that are not going down when it comes to the battery, with manufacturing costs that remain high in Europe, with electricity prices that are triple as high here compared to the US or China when it comes to manufacturing, with unclarity for customers again when they charge publicly or at home. There are differences in price. There is no convenience enough in charging. So it's a multitude of factors that are depressing the market. So it's not a lack of supply. That's also why the penalties are the wrong thing to do now. Penalties are there to punish if you do not do your job. But manufacturers are doing their job. They're delivering vehicles on the market. The market is growing, but not fast enough to make to meet the targets. And that's why we believe there should be relief for the penalties, and more should be done on the enabling conditions, so charging infrastructure, and also incentives to help everybody indeed make this positive choice in this transformation, but at their own pace, in their own time, also taking into account their own personal choices. Mobility is different for everyone. And yeah, that takes a lot of effort where a lot of actors, policymakers, industry, stakeholder groups need to work together.
Vice President of the European Commission, Teresa Ribera, said last week to Financial Times that the Commission is planning a EU-wide system that would incentivize the Europeans to buy more electric vehicles. What do you think about that, Mr. Gieseke? Is that the right way forward?
Well, we have a clear position in our position paper, which has been mentioned earlier, that incentives are possible at national level, but a European-wide system is, from my point of view, not feasible. I'm keen to know what Ms. Ribera, the Honorable Vice President of the Commission, has a calculation for this incentive scheme, because obviously we do not have the money in the European budget. I think your podcast will tomorrow have the question on budget, so please give them the question. Do they have additional money for incentivizing electromobility European-wide? The truth is that, for example, in Germany, we had a green minister, Mr. Habeck. He will be minister till the 23rd of February. Then we'll have a new government in Germany, hopefully. We spent up to 8,000 euro for a car. And the reality was that some people bought cars, like, for example, a Tesla. This is not an advertisement now, but Tesla was one of the brands. The people had these cars for 6 months. After 6 months, they sold it within Europe, preferred to Denmark, because then you could make the most profit. So this is something where incentive scheme does not fly at all.
Isn't that the reason why it should be European-wide?
Yeah, okay. But European-wide, you have to say we have no competence for that, and we have no money. So if you don't have the competence and not the money, you should not think about an incentive scheme. That is something. Otherwise, if you have a new source and have the money, you can discuss it. But the truth is, of course, if you come from Czech Republic or from Luxembourg or from Germany, it is so different to have a social adequate mechanism to apply for such a scheme. This is not feasible. So in Luxembourg, you have 10,000 euro net, and you are in a way a middle salary man, where in Czech Republic with 10,000 euro net, you are, well, better off. So you cannot have a proportionate incentive scheme. This kind of social leasing, the France model, it did not fly at all. So now we should not think about such a system, not having the money, not having the competence. So I'm really wondering on which facts Ms. Ribera found this proposal.
Mr. Krutilek, one, do you agree? And second, then what is the way to get Europeans to buy electric vehicles?
I completely agree with Jens. I think that what we need to focus on at the moment is the supply side, which means that we need to help automotive industry to work. And if automotive industry is healthy, then they are ready to produce such a products which are affordable for masses of European countries, and that's crucial. I'm not friend of any subsidies, and it was rightly pointed out that we have no money in European budget, and I don't think that new financial perspective starting from 2028 will make any changes in the whole budget. I mean, internally, of course, there will be many changes, but not the volume of the European budget. So I think that what we need now for customers to buy new electric cars are affordable price. That's clear. And if there's a longer range, the better, of course. But I think the price is crucial. I usually have an example of my parents. They are living in a small village. They are driving 5,000 kilometers per year. They have own house. They can have a wallbox in their garage, but they cannot afford to buy a new electric car. But the other conditions are met. They are in my opinion, electric cars for them will be the best solution, but they are not ready to buy it. So if the price is lower, then they will definitely go for it.
Ms. De Vries, will the average middle-income family in Europe be able to buy an affordable car in the future?
Yeah, that's a very good question, because I think the price of cars has risen because there's more content, as we call it, in the car. So expensive technology, battery technology, but also on the safety side or electronics. So a car is not a cheap consumer good. So you will remain seeing huge differences. And that's also why having a healthy second-hand market is important, because most people actually, I think today, buy second-hand vehicles, not new ones. Corporate fleet cars, so company cars, will remain a very important segment where actually I think with incentives and fiscal measures, things can be done to generate more demand. But also there we would say work with carrots and not with sticks. We need to carefully look at what can be done at the demand side, but indeed also on the supply side. And there, when it comes to manufacturing vehicles, I come back to the cost of manufacturing in Europe per se, for the auto industry, but also for other manufacturing industries, with very high electricity prices, with a high cost of regulation, because all individually regulations may make a lot of sense, but vehicles are one of the most regulated products on the market, so adding it all up means a lot of additional cost. One of my members, Luca De Meo from Renault, always says that 1/3 of his engineers are actually working on implementing regulation, not on innovation, not on making cars nicer, better, more attractive for people to buy. So we need to change something there, because it's a crucial differentiator when you look at the US or China, where there are more incentives, where it's more innovation oriented, where the cost of manufacturing actually is lower, and this will be crucial. In Europe, we can never fully compete on cost, and I don't think anybody wants it, because we also want well-paid jobs, and they support the economy as well. But we need to find a better balance than is currently at place, especially also for vehicles, as it's a consumer good, it's a volume product, it comes off the production lines in huge numbers, and it employs a lot of people. So it's really critical that we get the balance right.
So how do we make sure that if Europeans already decide, okay, we want to buy electric vehicles, that they actually buy the European ones and not the Chinese ones? And that's
yes, you cannot force the buyer to have a European approach, but of course I count on the quality in the long run, that we have the best quality and that the price go down. And of course we have to work on the infrastructure. Your podcast is the European perspective, so let's have the European perspective. We have in France, Germany, and Netherlands, we have 61% of the loading infrastructure, so the charging points. So if it is to be a European success story, we need to have the loading infrastructure all over Europe. Then every European can say, well, it's guaranteed that I can go from A to B. But if it's just in 3 countries, it is not enough, 3 out of 27. So this goes to the same direction. It's not only the buying, it's the certainty that I can go from A to B. And of course, the cost to load the car, if it was the story of just electrification is the only way forward and it's much cheaper, let's check the reality. In Germany, if you load on the highway, 1 kilowatt is 79, almost up to €1 for 1 kilowatt. So it is not the cheap solution. We need the infrastructure, we need the energy prices going down, and we need the cheap car. And if those things come together, we will have a possibility for our brands, for our OEMs to sell those cars. But I'm sure that not the European incentive scheme, not a national incentive scheme, subsidies, like you told already, are not the solution, but a good product, that is the solution.
And talking about the EV chargers, stuff like that, so should the Commission propose something to actually make sure that the member states do build the infrastructure that is needed?
Well, we have the AFIR regulation in place. Now we have discussions on how member states are behind, and we cannot force them, but we have to accelerate. And this goes to the revision of the CO2 standards, which are needed. We cannot think one without the other. So if we have an earlier revision of the CO2 standards, we should have an earlier revision on the alternative fuel infrastructure regulation on all these charging points as well. This has to go hand in hand.
Talking about the competition from China, it is one thing that they produce cheaper electric vehicles than we do in Europe. The other thing is that even when we manufacture our own EVs, we are still dependent on raw materials from China. So what is the role of the European Union in that case? How can it help to make sure that the automotive industry knows that they will have the materials that they need?
Well, we have to invest into R&D. That's crucial, because then you can, of course, use less materials. That's first point. The second point is that we have to recycle materials which are already here in Europe, or if there are some chances to find them out here in Europe, then we should go for it. But what I can see now is that Europe is afraid of drilling or doing this, bad job for automotive industry. So that's why we only have Critical Raw Materials Act, which is sort of document which is about reporting, but not much about these critical materials as such. So in a nutshell, I think that we need to change our mindset. So if we would like to be competitive, it's not just about earning money, but we have to invest some money as well.
So talking about the recyclation aspect, there is already legislation that is now being discussed in the European Parliament. How could that help? Well, how could that work? Because so do you need to, in a practical sense, do you need to completely change the way you build cars to make sure that you can recycle the things back? Or well, actually, how should that legislation work?
Well, you are talking about end-of-life
Yes.
vehicles legislation. Yes. Well, there's a risk. There's a risk that at the end of the day, OEMs will not be able to produce cars if the recycled content will be put very high. And I'm not a friend of that, because I was part of negotiation of the battery regulation, and that was the same story. The conditions for recycled materials are very high, and I don't think this is the way. So there should be enough room for maneuver for the manufacturers with the path forward, which should be defined by the legislation, but not such a strict solution. Because if we have such a strict solution, that we will just bind the hands for the manufacturers, and they will not be able to do anything. So it's about the balance.
Yeah, I fully agree. On the one hand, it's a very positive story already. A car is one of the most recycled products today already in the EU. So we're now really talking about, making those last steps with recycled content, and there you run into quality issues or reusability issues that indeed need to be looked at very carefully. So we have a good story to tell already, but we need to keep it manageable.
We are nearing the end of the podcast, so I will ask each of you last question. We were very positive, we were very negative about the future of the European industry in this podcast. And so maybe if we face so many challenges, what are the opportunities that the industry has right now? And Mr. Vries, if you could begin.
Yeah, I can imagine that it comes across as a lot of doom and gloom, but I think, again, also here for the entirety of the industry, there's a really positive story to tell. Car manufacturing is a very complex system matter, but it's also competence, therefore, that is really grounded and founded also in Europe, and that's where we need to continue building on. I think we should really strive for delivering this very resilient, forward-looking, innovative auto industry in Europe, and I believe we can do that. And then it will again be one of the pillars of all of the European economy. So we have a lot of opportunity to achieve that. We shouldn't at all think about giving up on this important industry for Europe. There's fierce competition from China. The US are putting a lot of effort also in strengthening their industry for the very same reasons. So indeed, we should make sure that this is a positive story starting today, tomorrow, not in 15 or 20 years from now.
Mr. Krukilek, we both know just how crucial the automotive industry is for the Czech Republic. So what are the opportunities that it has at this moment?
Well, I don't think that we have been negative when we've been discussing the issue of automotive industry today. I think that we have shown what is necessary to be done in near future to make transition of automotive industry in Europe happen. I think that we have tools. We don't need strategic dialogue, which seems to be exclusive for some of manufacturers and some of actors. I think that we know what needs to be done. We are having initiative in European Parliament. Same initiative or comparable initiative is being done in Council of the European Union. It's led by Czech and Italian government. And I think that if we push Commission to do what is need to be done, it means legislative proposal for deleting the penalties, or at least extending the calculation period for at least 5 years, then I think that there's a bright future for automotive industry in Europe.
Mr. Gieseke, what do you think?
Oh, I could not agree more, so I can make it very short. No, I hope to say something on the end of life, because there I'm the rapporteur in the Transport Committee, but there we don't have the time. I agree with you that there is a good perspective and future for automotive. But of course, we have to correct some mistakes. This has been discussed, and now this is something which is important. We should not hide or disguise or postpone in a format like we talk with everyone, very inclusive on a strategic dialogue, because then, like in Brussels, the European perspective is you end in nirvana. We have clear expectations, and this is something where the Commission is hiding, because they are a bit frightened and talk about regulatory stability, planning security, predictability. But if there was a mistake, we have to correct it. And this is why we need a proposal from the Commission as soon as possible. So my message would be, we can have this strategic dialogue in order to have all the different stakeholders on board. But in parallel, there has to be the work to be done that the Commission comes with a proposal before summer. Otherwise, we just lose time with this strategic dialogue, and then it's not worth mentioning it strategic.
So there's the message for the Commission, I suppose. So we will end here. Thank you all for coming. Thank you very much, and thank you for listening, and we will hear you next time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.